I caught my first wave when I was 13 years old, and I still remember the sensation. I remember sitting on my board. I remember the swell coming in, paddling, catching it. And I remember the sensation of the wind blowing past my face, the smell of the water, and even the smell of the wax on my board. And I rode it all the way in on my belly, and I remember getting to the inside and just turning around with my board and looking out to the ocean. And I just remembered that, I remember thinking that I am going to be a surfer for the rest of my life. And then about 8 years later, I'm living in Hawaii, and I'm still a surfer. It's all I think about. But I've decided I'm going to be a surf photographer because how else can you keep surfing? Perfect. The only problem was I couldn't stop surfing to become a surf photographer. So one day I'm out in the water, and I pull into this beautiful barrel, and I'm riding in the barrel, and it collapses on me. And the next thing you know, I'm wiping out, and I'm getting thrown over with a lip, and I'm expecting to land on my feet, and I hit head first on the reef. So I come up, huge hole in my head, straight to the hospital, and stitch it up. 4 or 5 days later, I have to go back to the hospital because it's gotten infected. They haven't cut the reef out of my head. So I'm laying in bed before the drugs have kicked in the hospital, and all I kept thinking about was, I never got to be a photographer. And the doctor had told me, if it's gone into your head, there's nothing you do, you're going to die. And that's how I went to sleep. And so I woke up in the morning, and they came in, congratulations, you're not going to die. And I was really excited about that, but you're going to have to stay out of the water for 30 days. And I was like, what? You know, one second I'm happy I'm going to live. Next second, what? Out of the water 30 days? So I took the time to get that camera equipment and start using it. And by the end of the 30 days, I realized, okay, am I going to be a neighborhood nobody surfer, or am I actually going to try to do this, be a surf photographer? And that was kind of the beginning of more photographer, less surfer. So it's been 35 years now, and I've been able to travel around the world, and I've been inspired by so many things. But my passion is surfing, and I just love it, I live it, and I photograph it. And I photograph it from the beach, and I photograph it from the water, but my favorite place to photograph it is from under the water. And that's the perspective most people don't get a chance to see. So just imagine I'm in the water, I've got my mask on and my fins, and I'm waiting, and the sets start to come. And right before the wave's going to hit me, I dive underwater so that I'm on the other side of the wave and swing my camera around as the wave's just passing right by me. Just imagine you're underwater and surfboard fins are whizzing by your head, or you're watching a wave pass you and it's detonating on the reef, just exploding, or even surfers wiping out and they're just flying through the air, or flying through clouds of massive energy, and it's all just fingertips away from me. So I've brought a few photos tonight to show you guys, and I thought I would just do a quick description on a couple of them. This is a very good friend of mine who passed away a little while ago, Andy Irons. Thank you. And I'll always remember this because we were doing something early in the day and we heard Pipeline had gotten good, and so we raced down there. I'll meet you down there in a half an hour. And I remember Andy had just caught a wave and he's paddling back out, and he looks over at me right before this and says, "Living the dream, Bielmann, living the dream." That's Andy again, just standing like a king in Tahiti, Chopu. And when the day that Andy passed away, the day that Andy passed away, it was a really traumatic day for the whole surfing industry, and I woke up the next morning and I decided to do a slideshow just to help with, the grieving that everyone was going through, because I had so many personal shots because I'd traveled with him so much. So I put this slideshow together all day long, and we put it to Israel, somewhere over the rainbow. And I mean, when I finally played it at the end of the night, I just broke down. And so we put it on the internet that night. And the next morning I woke up and thousands of people were watching this video, and within a week, I think it was 250,000 people. And I had people emailing me from around the world saying, "Thank you for showing this other side of Andy Irons." And his father had called me, and he said I couldn't even watch it in the beginning. And then every day I'd watch it once in the morning to get me going, and then I'd watch it twice. And he said it was the only thing that got me through the whole traumatic experience. And I remember at that moment thinking to myself, this is the greatest thing I've ever done with my photography. I've never touched so many people before. This is Go For It Gordo. He's a Brazilian guy, worst wipeout of the day in Tahiti. And he came by my house the next day to see the photo, and he said, "My name is Go For It Gordo. I have no technique, but I go for it." Oh, yeah. Now, this is just, you wouldn't even believe it if you saw me. It's flat water at Waimea Bay. I'm literally floating with this giant camera right along the shoreline, and these waves go up the beach and they rush back into me. This is shot from the beach with a long telephoto lens. Andy Irons again. Kelly Slater, greatest competitive surfer in the world, and this is at Pipeline in the late evening. You can see the sun coming through the lip. This is one of those shots I was sort of explaining about, falling through whitewater. Just imagine I'm in the water and I see somebody wiping out and they penetrate through the wave long enough to sometimes make eye contact with me just for a second and then they're sucked back into the vortex. That's how close to the energy I am. And this is that mirror-like image of the surfer going by. This is also shot in Tahiti. This is Indonesia, and I was actually shooting this from a boat, so you can imagine the boat almost went over. This is, I've sort of found these waves that do this crazy, I don't even know what makes them do it, but this wild vortex that spins around the waves. Anyway, I've started searching it out, and I find it in different places. I have certain edges of the reef where it does it. I really don't know what it does it, but I'm still looking for them and shooting them every time I can. This is sort of the same thing happening. These are other photographers here, like swimming, and so you get an idea, but it looks like mercury to me. That's what I thought of when I saw it. This particular shot was Bruce Irons in Indonesia, and we strapped some flares to the back of his surfboard. We had him on a jet ski. This was 4 a.m. in the morning. We had him on a jet ski waiting for the set. As soon as the set would come, the jet ski would start. Somebody leaned down and lit the flares, and then the ski pulled him. And one of the Red Bull guys, who was a Red Bull trip, wanted to be on the back of the ski. So he's on the back of the ski. As Bruce takes off, the flares shoot right in his face. He lived. He was all right. Okay, I had just showed up in Tahiti, and I went to shoot underwater photos. These photographers are shooting above the water. I have my mask. I'm shooting underwater. And I'm out there for 2 minutes, and this huge set comes. I didn't think it was as big as it was. So I start to panic, and I'm going forward, and I had to remind myself, remember what you're out here for, take pictures. So I started shooting the wave as it's coming at me, and right before it hit me, I just instinctively turned to the right and shot the photographers right beside me. So basically, that's exactly what I'm doing, is going under the same wave. Okay. This is the greatest surf shot I've ever taken, simply because it's the craziest wave any human being has ever ridden. And this was over in Tahiti a year ago, August, Nathan Fletcher, and it was the biggest wave of the day. And if you see the tracks going, those are tracks from jet skis and other boats. I'm in the boat with the craziest boat driver in Tahiti, who I swore the day before I would not get in his boat, and it just ended up that way. But the reason I got this incredible sort of David and Goliath shot is because he's sitting at the bottom of the wave when all the other boats are at the top of the wave looking down or on the other side of the wave. But Nathan, right after the shot, the whitewater just came from behind him and just covered him, exploded him, the wave broke on him. And he told me that when he was getting thrown around, he felt to make sure his head was still on his body. And he wasn't joking either. And this is one of those waves where people always talk about, oh, did the surfer die? Or people that ask questions about surfing. Did the surfer die? And I just go, oh, they don't know anything about surfing. Of course he didn't die. But this is the wave that even surfers were going, how did he not die? So, Nathan Fletcher, crazy human being. And this is my all-time favorite shot. This is my wife. She's going to be mad I said that. But this was the beginning of my underwater photography career. 15 years ago when I shot this. And ever since then, I've moved on and kept doing it. So, okay, so all right, so smile, pass it on. There is a company called Sanook in the surfing industry, and they have this great logo, smile, pass it on. And they had this brilliant idea to team up with Operation Smile, who does just that. They pass on smiles. They're a team of doctors and nurses and other volunteers who travel around the world and give their time, and they donate their time and their skills to helping kids with cleft palate deformities. Try saying that fast. And this particular year, they were doing it in Peru. So we had this great idea. Let's go to Peru. Let's do a surfing magazine article, Transworld Surf article, and we can do documentaries, and we'll bring all this awareness to surfers all around the world. So no matter where they are, hopefully we'll inspire them to give however they can, help however they can. So this was our trip. I have a few slides from it. This was the first day we got there, and we're just sort of getting to know everyone, the doctors, the kids, we're bonding, and the bubbles, believe me, bubbles are international. And each of the guys would bond with one of the children to follow through this journey for this documentary. And they really loved our cameras for obvious reasons. But, you just start to love these kids. I don't know what else to say about it, but this sums it up. It's just a wonderful experience. This was our group with some of the mothers and kids who were chosen to have the operation. Because one of the things we found out was not all the kids that show up get to have the operation, because some of them have colds or flus, or there's a number of different reasons, but they don't all get to have it. So it was like a heartbreaking thing we weren't ready for, to see these families who had come so far turned away. But on the good side, these were the kids that were going to have the operation. So the reason we were there also was to do a surf trip. So when we weren't in the hospital, we were out looking for surf, and Peru has really good surf. And honestly, we knew we had to do this. It was an important part of the trip, but at the same time, after getting to know the kids, we just wanted to be in the hospital and hanging out with them. But this was important. We had to do it. This particular wave came through, and when I got this entire sequence, I knew I had something really special. And between this and all the other shots that I have, that we were really going to tie this whole theme together, this article, and we were going to bring massive attention to this trip and for this cause. So once we had this under our belt, we were done with the surfing and we headed back to the hospital. And it was really cool because they actually let us go into the operating rooms and watch the procedures. It was amazing. And the doctors were so cool. They were telling us, come on over, film this, film that, And it took about an hour and a half to 3 hours for each operation. And the really, really great part was the children that, we followed throughout this. At the end of the surgery, the guys were actually able to bring the children and walk through and hand them to their mothers. And this was such an emotional, it was the greatest part of the whole thing. So emotional. And I think about, so many people, it's like you always wonder what you can do. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. But I just look at my passion, which was surfing, and it took me across the world to be part of something so incredible that changed so many lives, my own included. So if surfing can do that, so here's my challenge to you guys. It's find something you're passionate about, find something you love, and jump in. Don't just watch change happen, be part of change. Be inspired, smile, and pass it on. Thank you.